Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. I'm going to take you back in time a couple years to start this episode, back in 2018. That's right, way back 6 years ago. John Cronin was a 22-year-old entrepreneur with Down syndrome who had a dream to create a life-changing, purposeful, and joy-filled life. Together with his dad, Mark, you're going to meet them both on this episode, they turned that dream into the world's largest sock store. You've heard of it before. It's called John's Crazy Socks. And yet, John's Crazy Socks is more than just a business. This is a mission-driven movement that employs individuals of all abilities and shows the world what is possible when you focus on inclusion, on kindness, on joy, on life. Today, John and Mark join us to share how they bootstrapped their business into a multi-million-dollar venture, how they work tirelessly for individuals with different abilities and continue to spread happiness by giving back, you ready for this one, more than $750,000 to their charity partners. My friends, you're going to walk away from this conversation with a reminder that small acts of love often make the biggest impact, and that sometimes a simple pair of socks can change the world. This is a story about family love. This is a story about seeing beauty in the brokenness. This is a story about possibility. This is a story for you to take notes on, my friends. So my encouragement right now on the front side, buckle up. You're going to love this father-son duo of John and Mark Cronin. So without waiting any longer, let me bring them on to set with us. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, and soon to be yours, their names are Mark and John Cronin. Mark and John, father, son, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to your podcast.
We're really happy to be here. Thank you. Though I'm wary that I am now outnumbered by Johns.
And we're also much younger than you, Dad slash Mark. So as John was telling me before we hit record, you're an old man. You are an old man. So John and I will probably be doing most of the work today. So Mark, just get comfortable. Go back to your lazy boy.
That's cool. I probably actually change my name.
Yeah, no, you don't need to change your name, but I'm used to this John carrying me, so that's okay.
So let's talk, though, John, not about when you carried your dad, but when he carried you. So often on our Live Inspired podcast, we go back to the very, very, very beginning of individual stories. But Mark, rather than going back to your childhood, I want to go back to a time in your life when you had it all. You're happily married, you're happily gainfully employed, you've got two healthy, handsome boys, and now you're expecting your third brilliant little boy. His name is going to be John. Take me back to that time in your life.
It was actually somewhat a hectic time. There's a certain irony. This is the summer of 1995 is when my wife got pregnant with John. Well, here's the theme for the day, right? We were a little bit older. We were 37. Her OB wanted her to get tested to see if her child would have Down syndrome. And in those days, there was no easy test. There was just the amniocentesis, which had high false positives, was painful and dangerous.
Yes.
And she said no. She said it wouldn't matter. One of the things was the doctor said to her, well, I think I want to talk to your husband about that. And I wonder how that doctor didn't wind up with his head through the wall. Because my wife is a tough woman.
Yes, she is.
And we did talk about it briefly, and we didn't really think about it. But we did not know John would be born with Down syndrome. And he was born in the middle of the night, unexpected. You go to the hospital. They wound up doing a C-section, had nothing to do with the Down syndrome. But here's also how we found out. Shortly after he was born, and after I got to hold my newborn son in my arms and bent over him and wept, the covering OB came in to us with her head down and then looked at us and said, I'm so sorry. I have bad news for you. It appears that your son may have a slight case of Down syndrome. And we looked at her and said, what are you doing? This is our boy.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say congratulations. And it wasn't denial. It was, okay, he's got Down syndrome. I got brown hair. That's what we deal with. But the negativity, and we've come to learn that of so many parents here, people feeling sorry. And it's like, why would you do that? We have a son. That was our introduction, pal. You've heard that story, right?
Yes, I do.
But then you are immediately confronted by trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? So we spend the day together and family, and then that night I go to the internet and, oh, we have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Right? For your audience, most of them probably know, you get Down syndrome by having a little bit extra.
Extra love.
Extra love, right? All of us humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. People with Down syndrome have an extra 21st chromosome. And with that comes certain features that everybody shares, certain facial features, low muscle tone, intellectual development challenges. Some are inconsequential. If you look at the palm of your hands, most of us have 3 creases running across it. People with Down syndrome only have 2. So what? But it can also bring very significant medical challenges. So John, like about 10% of people born with Down syndrome, was born with an incomplete intestine, who's getting no nutrition. So on day 3 of his life, he needed intestinal bypass surgery. We didn't know if he could survive that operation. We brought a Catholic priest into the hospital to baptize him. He did survive. And about 50% of people born with Down syndrome, John had a significant heart defect. He had 2 holes in his heart. His little heart couldn't keep up. To put it in some perspective, this is hard to imagine now, buddy. When John was born, he weighed 6 pounds, 6 ounces. 3 months later, he weighed 6 pounds, 5 ounces. He couldn't grow. His heart couldn't produce, and he wound up in full congestive heart failure. I held this guy in my arms. He was literally turning blue and needed open heart surgery. Again, we didn't know if he could survive the operation, but couldn't live without it. And he did survive.
There was a quote you heard from your cardiologist. I don't think it's ultimately the one you worked with, but it moved me deeply when I've heard you share it in the past. This cardiologist, late visit, your wife is still at the other hospital after giving birth through a C-section, and this cardiologist says to you, they usually try to save babies like this these days.
Yeah.
So
just stunning stuff.
To talk to me about that.
There was kind of a disregard for the life. And it's something we see, it's made manifest in some of our public policy of not counting people as full people and not seeing the potential. John has taught me so much. One of the lines I live by now is, never be blinded by somebody's limitations. Be awed by their possibilities. Take my buddy here, right? My partner. When he was young, he couldn't talk. You remember you learned sign language to communicate.
I do.
And you had that assistive voice device. Now, he's a paid public speaker. Had we stuck with that, well, he can't talk. Where would he be? Where would we be?
Yes. So, John, when you hear your dad talk about that, do you remember when you began speaking? Do you remember that age?
I do. I learned when they're born that I had trouble talking.
Yes.
And I think it's that experience I have that my parents, my dad taught me a sign language because it helped me communicate. And I'm also do a touch screen, some device and help me communicate and that all my experience I had when a kid.
Well, you also had some great speech teachers and
Well,
speech therapists.
my dad saying that I have a great teachers, a great education, and a great speech teacher, And I just want to give a shout out on this podcast because it's very important to me. I want to give a shout out to my wonderful speech teacher, Miss Clay. She is my speech teacher. She taught me public speaking.
John, you said four children,
I have 4, yes.
so you probably know what this is like. You're right. You can't wait for them to start to talk. And
Yes.
then once they do, sometimes you'd wish they would just stop.
So I want to talk about that part of it too, because John is not your only baby. You've got 2 other little baby boys, and there's a very tender story about you preparing the older boys to get onto the bus the following day with their little brother.
Well, first of all, the older boys are not little and never were little. It turns out we breed offensive linemen. But yes, true to their spirits, I sat them down and they were always protective of their brother. And I said, listen, we don't know what John is going to experience at school. You're going to have to watch out. And he could get picked on. And the older one, Patrick, true to his spirit, said, that's okay, Dad. I'll just explain to people what Down syndrome is, so then they'll understand. And Jamie, the middle one, he nodded his head and said, yeah, that's what he'll do. And if they don't listen, I'm going to knock them out. But it's almost a cliche, and people say it, I don't know if they really mean it. We have been fortunate that John has been patient with us. We had to catch up to him. He's taught us so much about the world and about other people and about what we can do. We're pretty fortunate for that.
So let's talk about something you refer to as the cliff. All of our friends who have children who have any special needs whatsoever know that at some point these kids are going to graduate out of the special school system, and they're going to have to begin a life on their own. They're going to have to figure out what the next right step is in their journey. It's at age 21, I think.
Yeah. If you have a disability, you can stay in a public school system until you're 21, anywhere in the U.S.
So John's in school until he's 21. His brothers have launched into life, and now it's real. Dad, what do we do next? And so take me through that moment where you hit this cliff, and then you begin to start building forward the life that you enjoy today.
It's really important to recognize that, because when you're in school, everything is kind of taken care of for you. All your programs and services, they're all right there.
Right.
Some people, that's where they get their food. And then you turn 21 and they say to you, get out. We've had enough. There are huge variances around the country as to what's out there. Think your usual suspects. The high tax states, right? Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, California, lots of programs. And then you have Texas, Mississippi, California, nothing. But here's kind of the big picture, my view of it. We've made tremendous strides on the medical front. John's testament to that.
Yeah.
We've made great strides in the educational front. It varies from state to state, school district to school district, but we do a pretty good job there.
Yes.
Then you turn 21, you're healthy, you're educated, you're ready to go, and there is nothing. And the next big challenge is a triumvirate of jobs, employment, housing, and community. Only 1 in 5 people with a disability are employed in this country. It's awful. And it's not because they're not capable. I used to say we need to create more jobs. I don't believe that anymore. I think we have the jobs. We have to recognize that people can do.
The challenge you face as an individual is faced by any parent of any child who's launching toward this cliff with no real safety net below them to catch them. So the exact same frequently agonizing journey that they all walk, you're about to. Share with our audience how you and John and Carol walked through this.
Well, I do want to put it in some context. It's always, we raised John the way we raised our other 2. You promote that independence. So you're always asking, like, what's next? And what can we do? And you don't want to do too much.
Right.
But for John, so he's in his last year of school. It always seems to come on you fast. And what were you looking at?
I look at job, school, and program. I can't find career that I don't like.
You couldn't find anything he liked.
Yes.
There are, social service programs, but a lot of them are like daycare. They'll keep you busy.
Yep.
He loved school, but he didn't want to go to school. He wanted to go and do something. Couldn't find anything. But here's where John is a natural entrepreneur. Sees a challenge or a problem as an opportunity. You couldn't find a job, what'd you say?
I said I want to create one. I want to make one. I told my partner I want to benefit him. And nice fellas have been together.
So again, John, you have 4 children. I
Yes,
got
yeah.
3. I'm a lucky man because this is one I could work with.
Yes, I am.
You know?
Sorry, Patrick and James. So he wants to start a business. You say, you know what? We'll try that. John starts coming up with ideas, like food at first. Maybe we can work together in a kitchen, Dad. Then
Right,
that's
a
not going to
food
work.
truck. Right,
Neither
we
you
come
cook.
out of a movie. What was the movie?
Chef. It's really neat movie about a father and son buying a food truck.
And he's like, Dad, we're gonna run a food truck.
Yeah.
And this seemed like great fun.
I love pork.
Yeah, right. What could we make? Where would we put it? Quite frankly, I'm not sure I want to spend my day in a food truck.
Yes.
But it didn't matter because we ran into this problem.
Oh, we can't cook.
Yeah, we can't. John, as I look back, was always entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And his view, this was just going to happen.
So, John, tell our audience about how you landed on this idea of being in the sock business.
My sock is it's fun, it's colorful, it's creative, it's done. It's always going to be me. I want crazy socks my whole life. My dad and I travel around. I travel around looking for those socks.
He's been wearing these things.
Mark, it tells more about that. So was he the kind of kid that just loved socks?
He loved them. John has very particular sense of style.
I do.
And he'll plan well ahead of time what he's going to wear, and he'll have a theme. He'll match his clothes to what he's going to do, though there's not necessarily straight line logic on it. And his brother Jamie, and sometimes my wife would come to me and say, "You can't let him wear this to school."
I think that's the fashion police.
No, they're not the fashion police. So we have pictures of these crazy socks he would wear long before we ever thought of, oh, let's try this as a business.
So he's passionate about socks. He's passionate about wild, crazy socks. What's the name of the company?
What name did you come up with?
Crazy socks.
And to his credit, he didn't it wasn't like walking around saying we should sell socks. He came with a whole plan. We should sell online. He had the name. There was no moving him on this. I tried getting my name in there, and that wasn't going to work, was it?
No.
So it's called John's Crazy Socks, and you start the website. It's pretty bare bones at the beginning, should we say?
Yeah.
It started pretty small. Take us back to the beginning of the business.
So he comes up with this idea, and I say, okay. I was at the same time starting some other online businesses. Said, okay, we'll test it. The classic route to go is you come up with a business idea, stop everything, and prepare that business plan. And I've done plenty of those, and I've evaluated plenty of those. You do your market research, your competitive analysis, operational plan, financial forecast. They're always wrong. We didn't do that.
Yes.
We just said, let's get something up and running. So we built a website, got a little bit of inventory.
Yeah.
The only marketing we did was set up a Facebook page. I took out my cell phone. We made videos. And who do you think was in those videos?
I bet Dad was in them. Is that right, John?
Was I in the videos?
Oh yeah,
No.
you're in the video. You're in the video. I'm on the video. Socks, more socks.
But we opened mid-December to test the idea. We didn't know what to expect. The first day, we got what felt like a flood of orders. We got 42 orders, and most of them were local. We live out on Long Island in a town called Huntington.
Huntington. I love Huntington.
He's in the high school. It's where we live. That made sense that we got local orders. How would we deliver those?
Our home deliveries, we get red boxes. I put a sock in the box. I put a sticky note about it, and a candy, a bag of Hard Kisses.
Right, we got Hershey's Kisses ordered in the boxes, loaded up the car, drove around, and you knocked on doors delivering something.
I do.
How the customers respond?
A customer responds, they love the socks. They love me. And they want to take a picture with me. And share on social media. Where they get spread.
You know, it's December. It gets dark early here in New York. It gets
Correct.
cold. We're driving around. He goes off. I'm watching him. He knocks on doors. He goes in the house.
Yeah.
I'm waiting in the car. It's cold. It's dark. It's like, where is
I
he?
take a picture. A hot chocolate.
He's drinking hot chocolate. He's hanging out, having a grand old time.
I came out cold.
Here's the amazing thing is if it ends there, it's a sweet story. And it was a really worthy day. The wild thing is this is the first day and the second day and the third day and each progressive day. It's not a linear line upward, but it just keeps getting bigger and better. You keep impacting more lives. You keep spreading more happiness.
We opened it to test the idea. It tested well. So by the end of that month, we had shipped 452 orders. That was in 2 weeks. Granted, it was Christmas time. To a certain extent, we were fortunate to be ignorant, not to know as much to keep going. But we saw enough that we knew we could make a business of it. We didn't know how fast it would grow. We didn't know how big it would grow, but we could make a business of it. And the roots of everything we believed in, of those values, were there on day one.
You started off packaging them beautifully, throwing a little unexpected candy in it because you wanted them to be surprised, writing essentially a thank you letter. Each package came with a personal note that said essentially, thank you. Thank you. And that works for 44 or so deliveries. What happens at 47, 470, 4,770 as it continued to scale up? Were you able to keep that personalization and that sweet, unexpected joy within each package part of it?
Here we are almost 8 years later. We have shipped over 475,000 orders to 89 different countries. And every single order has had what?
A dinner for me and candy.
And now we've added to it. Now on the packing slip, you see the name and the picture of the person who packed your order. There are some things that you change, with the candy. So when we started, it was Hershey's Kisses.
Hershey's Kisses.
Everybody loved the Hershey's Kisses. You open it, you could smell the chocolate.
We got the email from the woman down south in Florida. You can't tell the person down south in Florida.
Because it melted?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we eventually moved to Skittles. We sent out over 300,000 packages of Skittles. And our Lord of the Socks, that's the person who runs our warehouse and fulfillment, he finds us lollipops.
Yeah, I would call it stickers.
Some people call them suckers. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a business. We were paying 26 cents a package for the Skittles. So we're paying about 5 cents each for the lollipop. That's easy. We're going to put 2 lollipops in. Why 2?
One for you, one for the friend.
It's part of the generosity.
Yeah, I that's part of our mission, like experience happiness, because that is important to know, because we want a good business, and show the impact and community.
Well, And the gratitude.
That's
is-
gratitude and to Father.
But here's an interesting point. We've had very smart people come in and say, what are you doing sending candy out?
Right.
Costing you money. And we have some strategic partners now that have money in, and they sat down and they're like, what are we doing? One lollipop. And these are good people. What I realized as we were having that discussion, if I had to explain to you why 2 lollipops and not 1 lollipop,
You're the wrong person.
right? You're never there. You never reach the end of the journey. But if you know who you are and you have that conviction, who you are becomes manifest in everything you do. And in an organization, that means you get everybody to buy into values. So we could talk about our 5 pillars, and one of them is we're going to make this person. We're not going to chase transactions. We're going to build relationships. And we're going to look for every way to connect. So one way is that experience of open the package. You're not just getting socks.
You get a dose of happiness.
Those are happiness.
There's so many questions I have because we could go into the business of it all and the direct competition with Amazon and Walmart.com. Like these are your competitors and you're going head to head and your delivery rate and your timeliness matches or supersedes them. It's remarkable what you've done. But I think I'm going to back into it by saying, Mark, when you have a good-natured friend say to you, oh, it's so nice what you're doing for John. How nice to do a business for him and for some of his friends. How do you respond when folks almost talk down to what this is and your role in it and his role in it?
Well, first of all, people underestimate John all the time. They'll ask, what does he really do? Is he really there? I tell people all the time, they used to say that James Brown was the hardest working man in showbiz.
Right.
John is the hardest working man in sockdom.
Did that.
Yeah, we get asked, do you run this out of your bedroom? Is this a full-time gig? Now, listen, we can always learn. And I wish we were much larger because then we can employ more people. But we're doing multi-million-dollar business with 34 employees. This is very real. This is a real business. And it succeeds on its own merits. And we want to show people, in many ways, we've made a big promise. We've made a promise that says you can take care of all your stakeholders, that you can employ people with different abilities.
Yes.
You can take care of your customers. And I used to be hesitant to say this. You could build a business based on love and it'll succeed.
So let's talk not only about John specifically, but about some of John's friends that he has attracted into the business. I've heard you say in the past that hiring people with different abilities is not altruism. It's good business. Why do you say that?
Even when we first got started, we're bootstrapping. We didn't go the route of the business plan and let's go look for investors to start. We're going to bootstrap this. So now we get these orders coming in and we got to assemble things. And I'm like, John, we need some help. He got some of his classmates. And we saw how dynamic they were. But I'll put this in some hardcore business perspective. So much of what we do, much of our employment is based on running a warehouse, a fulfillment shop. It's a pick and pack warehouse. Those are boom industries because everybody sells online. Orders come in, you got to pick them, pack them, send them out. Many people outsource it. Not going to shock you, John. The biggest supplier of that is Amazon. And if you sell on Amazon, they put a lot of financial pressure on you to use their service. I hear all the time from other employers, I can't find enough good workers. We met with a business group out in Wisconsin recently, and I said that, and they looked at me and said, enough good workers, we can't find enough workers. And over our 8 years, we have pulled from 3 different labor pools. People with different abilities, moms, there's some dads in there, but we schedule people in 4-hour shifts. You can still work 8 hours, but it's 4-hour shifts. So you can put your kid on the bus in the morning, come to work, pick your kid up in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then the third pool are just general laborers who want a starting wage of $16.50 an hour. By far, the best labor pool for us are people with different abilities. They're enthusiastic. They want to be here. They pay attention. They do a great job. We're better off. And we have no shortage of filling those jobs. Those businesses that adapt and figure out how to work with people with different abilities have a competitive advantage over other businesses.
How many socks are you currently warehousing?
Today we have 4,000 different kinds of stocks. Which means I own the world of the stock store.
Yes, he does. And even our partners came in, oh, we got to reduce all the number of SKUs. I agree with you. In many businesses, the 80-20 rule applies, right? 20% of your products account for 80% of your revenue. That's not true with us. We have a long trail of choices, and that's because people want to personalize things. And so we meet that need.
You have a simple mission. So in addition to putting socks on people's feet, you have a mission that has allowed you to do it at scale in 88 countries and on 480,000 sets of feet. So what is your mission statement?
And what do you say the keys to spreading happiness?
Only minute today is gratitude and two for others.
It's gratitude, do for others. The more we can do for others, the better off we are. And we have a sense of gratitude. We're so thankful for our customers. And our customers, that's what happens with the socks. They are socks that spread happiness. They are socks that change lives.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, we're not really a sock store. The socks become the physical manifestation of the mission in the story.
When your little boy was born, there were doctors whispering, did we even do the right thing in delivering this child? And, you know, sometimes we operate on children like that these days. So they were completely looking down and dismissive of this child that you were holding. That same child grew into the man, your business partner in the sock empire that you help lead, who has also spoken to Congress twice. What's it like speaking to Congress? What was that moment like for you?
I loved speaking Congress. That is very important to us, how we speak up.
I have dubbed myself a Whitman patriot, as in Walt Whitman. I believe in the dream. I believe in the city on the hill. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but I believe in that possibility. And to sit next to my son in the U.S. Capitol and testify, oh my God, it was overwhelming. It's part of where we're at. Look at this. You've invited us on your podcast. How awesome is that? Our business has gotten us attention. That creates an obligation on our part to speak up. That creates, we have to go and do that. We owe it. There's an anecdote we share that exemplifies this. We were down last month meeting with members of Congress, you know, because John's very persuasive. But we were down there, we got a phone call in the office from a woman in Houston.
Yeah, a customer from Houston, my dad's saying.
And
And
she said, my mother works on Capitol
Yeah.
Hill, and she's a fan of John's and would love to meet John. Do you think that'd be possible? And our colleague said, well, you know, have your mother text Mark, here's his cell number. So she did. And who was mom?
it's Nancy Pelosi. It's really cool.
Nancy Pelosi. Now, we're in a bad way in this country. Too often, if we disagree with you, we vilify you, we tear you down. We lose the sense of people's humanity. Nancy Pelosi, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum.
Right.
She's an 80-year-old Italian grandmother. We go to meet her. She greets John. She's so warm and nice with hugs and kisses.
Absolutely. And she say a picture of former president George W. Bush.
Photos
And
of socks she
like-
gave him because John had somewhat famously become sock buddies with the former president.
And also one thing very important to us that we have to talk to Pelosi.
Right. We then say, after all the niceness, but you see, now that we have this opportunity, Ms. Pelosi, we have to talk to you about repealing Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standard Act of 1938 that allows employers to pay people with a disability as little as 5 cents an hour. And she went and got her staff so we could walk through the issues. Because if we get that opportunity, we have that obligation.
Man, that is such a powerful story. And I'm glad midway through it, you said, I don't care how you feel about her politically, because I'm sure half the audience turned down the volume, the other half turned it up. But I think your perspective is spot on. You meet people where they are in love, and then you take the next right step together.
We have forgotten what brings us together. In fact, several years ago, and we've been advocating it since, we made what we called unity socks. They're nice, they're beautiful socks with American flags on them. And we sent a pair to every member of Congress. We introduced them with both a Republican and a Democratic congressman and said, please, let's talk to each other. And here's an experience I had different, was before we started this. I've organized some political campaigns. And I worked on a campaign in our town to change the town charter about how you elect town council members. And we had this very odd coalition. So this is back in 2009. We had progressives who had all worked on the Obama campaign. The local Democratic Party didn't want anything to do with them because they already ran the town and they didn't want new people. So we had progressives and we had Tea Party people who had pitchforks out, wanted to turn the town upside down. And these people worked together on this campaign. And in those days, we lived in this big old house. That's where we'd meet. And you'd have 50 or 60 people sitting there working together, breaking bread. And I would laugh because there they were talking, oh, you're a Met fan. Oh, our kids go to the same school. And they're all getting along. Meanwhile, the year before, these very same people stood on opposite street corners screaming at each other. But when they sat down and realized, oh, you're human, we have a lot more in common than we do that separates us. And we need to find that common ground. We're too locked in on positions instead of saying, well, why don't we talk about that?
Mark, when you think of your mission, is there a story specifically of someone who's written in or called, or you bumped into them on a subway or an airport or wherever it might have been that reinforced that it's all been worth it? It's worth the stress and the late nights and struggles with inventory and finances and labor and everything else you deal with when you're running a real business.
Countless ones. I'll give you two. Part of our mission, right, is let's show what's possible. One of the ways we do that is we host tours and work groups from high schools and social service agencies. Who gives the tours?
I do.
And now we do them virtually. So we've had school groups from around the world visit our place. But you've given tours to more than 2,000 people.
Wow. So
one day, after John gives a tour, we get a call from a teacher at an area high school saying, we were there yesterday on a tour and we brought this one student, happened to have autism. He didn't want to go. He was kicking and screaming. But today he walked into the classroom and he printed out a picture of him and John together. And he came up and he handed it to me and said, you see, I can do anything. That's pretty cool. Or tell him about Thomas.
Yeah, I like that story.
Thomas is one of our colleagues. He's a sock wrangler, right? That's what we call our pickers, sock wranglers. His mother first called us in October of 2017 and said, I hear you hire people like my son. I want you to hire my son. And our colleague said, well, we don't have any openings, but when we do, we'll let you know, we'll post it. She called every day because she's a mom. And I spoke to her and I said, tell me about Thomas. She said, well, Thomas has autism, a young man, early 20s, and he's in a very bad way. He's very depressed. We have trouble getting him to come out of his room. He won't shower or shave. He won't join any programs. And he hasn't spoken to his father in over 6 months. Well, sounds like a wonderful employee. When we had an opening, Thomas came out.
Yeah.
Now, when we hire, you have to know we don't give jobs to anybody. Everybody has to earn their job. If you get to know us, you'll find out that John here is a very nice guy. I am not. You're going to work, you're going to earn it. So to get the sock wrangler job, we'll train you, but you have to pass the sock wrangler test. Thomas passed that sock wrangler test as if he was put on this earth to be a sock wrangler. Today, Thomas is showered and shaved at 6:30 in the morning, waiting for his father to drive him an hour to work. And when he gets here, the young man who wouldn't look at you goes around the entire office and wishes everybody a good morning.
Mm.
And last year, to both the shock and the joy of his family, he stood up at his brother's wedding and gave the best man toast. And I want to be really clear. We did nothing. We have no special training, no special programs, no government support. All we did was give Thomas the opportunity to earn a job, and it's transformative. And wouldn't that wake you up in the morning?
Wakes me up this afternoon, man. That is both of those are such beautiful stories. And they're two of countless stories. Some you've heard, most you haven't. So my friends, I could spend all day wrangling socks with you, but instead I've got to go back and do a job and let you guys go back and wrangle some socks and get the afternoon orders out. Mine will be placed, I promise you that. But we have 7 questions that guide all of our guests together toward the finish line. They're called the Live Inspired 7. And Dad, you can decide whether you answer it or the CEO answers it himself. So
he's not the CEO. What's your
he told
title?
me he told me before you joined, he's the boss.
Well, he is the boss, but what's your title?
I'm a chief happiness officer.
He's the chief happiness officer.
The chief
We all need
happiness
one of
officer.
those.
So how about the first question goes to the chief happiness officer, my friend, John. So John, what's the best book you've ever read?
Everything.
Is there one in
Everything.
particular?
Go, dog, go.
Go, dogs, go.
It's a good one.
Oh, Dad,
Yeah.
you like my hat?
Yeah, I do not like your hat. He's now quoting from Go, Dogs, Go.
All right,
That's a
onward
good
and
choice.
upward. Dad, what is one positive characteristic or one trait that you possessed as a child that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
Oh, a certain recklessness. We grew up and we calmed down. I grew up at a time when you got told, get out of the house, come home for dinner. And we did things that were nuts.
You and I had the same upbringing. I think similar experience. And O'Leary's, Cronin. So I think we had a pretty similar upbringing. So you were reckless and fearless and on fire for life, man. I would say that clearly you still are. If your home caught fire and all living things were out and you had an opportunity of running in and grabbing one item, what one physical thing would you come out with?
I don't think there'd be anything. And now part of this, I referred before, we lived in this big old house. And it was filled with books and records and CDs. A few years ago, now it's more than that. It was 6 years ago. We decided to move out of that into an apartment in town. And I wanted a simpler life. It's going to be better for John. He could get around without driving.
February 2018.
But I walked out of that place with a couple of bags that had my clothes in it, some artwork, but gave away all the books.
Mm.
We had thousands of books. Gave away the books, gave away the CDs, the records. Didn't need it.
Let it burn, you say. You got what you need already with you. So I have a question for John. John, the long question that our listeners are used to is if you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a conversation with anyone, who would you like to be seated next to? But today, I just want to ask you more directly. Who's your best buddy? Who's your best friend?
You're my best friend? My dad. My dad is my best friend. Because my best friend taught me life lessons that he gave me. He gave me strength. He played with me. and it's nothing without my best friend.
You got to get out more.
I know.
I'm only kidding, but
John, when you hear that, man, like my heart's touched, and I'm just
My
meeting you.
father's best friend.
yeah, how do you respond to that, right? It's
How do you respond? What do you feel when you hear those words from that beautiful man to your side?
well, I know I'm flawed, but there's some inspiration on it. My wife and I got married, we thought young, right out of college. We didn't have kids for 10 years. We were busy growing up and figuring out who we were. And I was doing lots of things, playing rugby and traveling. And at one point, she came to me and said, "Hey, big fella, it's time. We're going to have children." And I put it off. Thought I would be a terrible father. I love being a dad, and I've worked at it. I have been great. People compliment me. They see the two of us, say, "Oh, you're a great dad." I'm like, "You want to talk to my two other boys? They'll give you some dissenting opinions." Everything's a work in progress. But I'm so fortunate to have this guy. And I know we've run long, but this seems like the show that I should make sure I share really the impact that John has had. Because you asked us how we get started. People love hearing that. And we talk about that in speeches, but like a vaudeville routine telling that story. People rarely ask where I was. So John did come to me and say, "Dad, I want to go into business with you." But what was happening in our lives was somewhat extraordinary. For the previous few years, I had been working with my wife to try to help her run. She had a personal injury law practice. What makes one a good lawyer has nothing to do with running a business. She didn't want to give up the business, said, "Oh, I'll come help you." And we grew that business nicely. But she had done something you can't do. And that was before we got started. She had dipped into some client funds. One client, taken money, always intending to put it back, didn't put it back. And in that late summer, I discovered that and came to her and said, "We have to run to that client, confess, and pay it back." My wife said, understandably, said, "I can't. If I do that, I'll lose my law license. I'll go to jail." She said, "You're going to go to jail anyway." We did, and we started paying back. We didn't have all the money to pay it back right away. And on Columbus weekend, she got a letter from the Bar Discipline Committee saying a complaint had been filed against you. And we knew the gig was up. On Tuesday, we shut down the law firm. Tuesday afternoon, 2 detectives showed up. And on Friday, she turned herself in. So we were there. We had just lost the family business. We had no income. My wife was facing a jail term. And we didn't know what the future held. And I held her tight. We got the family together and said, "We're going to find a way. We have to stay tight and support each other, protect what we have, and find a way forward." And in the midst of that, John came to me and said, "Dad, I want to go into business with you." And at first, I heard my son asking for help and my support.
Mm.
I'm a little slow. I realized what he was doing now. He was saying, "Dad, I believe in you. I know we're going to find a way forward." He was patient with us. He needed to help us. We just needed to see that.
So this boy who others thought you were helping the entire time ends up being the one who helped both you and your wife and your family, and now 480,000 sock wearers around the world.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable story. Plus, we did not even get into the fact that you give away a percentage of your income to worthy organizations to the tune, I think now, of almost $800,000.
800,000. It's never enough to just sell stuff. So we got to give back, right? We started by pledging 5% to the Special Olympics. Why the Special Olympics?
I am a Olympic athlete.
But we've gone on to create products, celebrate causes, raise awareness, and donate to them. So National Down Syndrome Society. Those socks change lives. You buy those socks and you're changing lives.
Thank you.
So we have 3 quick questions, and then I'm going to let you get back to work. So what's been the best advice, Mark, you've ever received?
So much. Believe, have conviction, believe, and follow through. I had an aunt, we'll talk about this the other day. You know, you're a good Irishman. She was a sister of St. Joseph. Big impact on my life. She would talk to me all the time. You have to know your values. And when I was a kid, I wasn't always listening. Now I talk about that all the time.
You do. What advice would you give yourself at age 20? So if you could go back in time right before you and Carol got married, and right before the boys started showing up, and right before life happened in a big way, what advice would you give yourself on the dawn of it all?
There's a song by Robert Earl Keen called Corpus Christi Bay about 2 wild drunken brothers. And one of them says, I'll paraphrase it, if I could go back and do it all over, how would I change? And the answer was, it wouldn't matter anyway, because I'd wind up doing the same things. Nobody is interviewing me about new Gutenberg software that I started in 1994. We made baseball for Windows, rave reviews, lost every penny we had. But if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have John's Crazy Socks.
Mm-hmm. So now a final question for you both, and we'll start with that and then end with John. It has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. Dad, Mark, how would you like your one sentence to read?
Just, he tried.
And then for John, how do you want to be remembered?
I want people to think about me, who I am, because I'm born this way. I know I'm sure I can do, and it's more important to me that I show my impact. I show the community I have. It's a wonderful thing.
You know how you're going to be remembered.
Hmm.
You're going to be remembered as the author of the book that you're writing right now.
I do.
But not the book about Down syndrome. What's the other book you're writing?
I write a book about John's giant book of jokes.
John's giant book of jokes. That's how you'll be remembered, as the author of John's giant book of jokes.
Right.
I think these questions are supposed to be hard, John, and you're making it seem easy, like you've done this before. So I want to thank you, my friend, for being such a model of happiness and joy and life in a marketplace, I think, longing for those things. And Dad, my friend Mark X, I want to thank you for being an awesome dad, being a great business colleague, being a great podcast guest, and being an example for the rest of us. I know you said you've got your bumps and bruises and your imperfections, but you shine a lot of light, man. Final question is, where can we learn more about the 2 of you and your 40 or so colleagues who are spreading happiness? What's the website?
The website is johnscrazysocks.com.
johnscrazysocks.com.
Well, Mark X and John, my friend, I want to thank you again for your lives. I want to thank you for choosing to live inspired. So for this time, audience, and until next time, my name is John O'Leary, and today is our day. What a gift it is. Live inspired. Well, Chief Happiness Officer, his name is John Cronin, and his father, Mark Cronin, have built John's Crazy Socks into a thriving business that prioritizes employing individuals with differing abilities, nearly 40, in fact, that contribute to their mission of spreading happiness every day. It ain't a sock company, is it, people? They sell a lot of socks. It's a happiness company. What a gift that is. If you enjoyed hearing from John and Mark Cronin, you will love one of my favorite conversations ever recorded on the Live Inspired podcast with my buddy Ben and my friend Amy Wright. They are founders of Biddy and Bo's Coffee. As proud parents of 4 children, 3 with intellectual and developmental disabilities, they created a space where people with disabilities are valued and given an opportunity for meaningful work. Tune in and you will hear their heartfelt journey, the source of their joy, and their empowering message about seeing perfection in life. You can check that out at the Live Inspired podcast. It's episode number 85. I know I'm making you go way back in time for that one, but let me tell you this, my friends. We've done a lot of podcasts around here, and all of these guests stay with me. All of their stories stay with me to one degree or another. But there were several stories that Ben and Amy Wright shared with me that almost like shape every step along my day, like big, powerful moments of clarity on what matters and what doesn't. So check it out. You'll find it at episode 85, or by cruising over to the show notes, clicking down, you'll see it in johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. Well, my friends, during a season of tumultuous change and election seasons and global conflict and challenges in our interpersonal relationships and in life, isn't it nice to know that there is a place for you where we talk about possibility, where we talk about value, where we talk about the things that matter most, and we let go of the things that are a little bit less important? If you get value from this podcast, do me a favor, like it on social media, follow us directly. You can comment and share in the Apple feed or wherever you pull down your podcast. It's one way that we get to elevate and expand our message of what it looks like to live inspired. So family, friends, leaders, and servants, for this time and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Today is your day. What a gift it is. Live inspired.